Welcome to the Buckmasters Whitetail Magazine video series, Action Bucks 2001. Brought to you by Yamaha, makers of the industry's finest ATVs, because you can either hunt tough or go home. Budweiser, to good times and the great outdoors, this Bud's for you. Radica Games, get real, get Radica. Bill Jordan's Real Tree, America's most versatile camo pattern. Wellington, makers of America's #1 deer lure, Tinks number 69 doe and rut buck lure. Lacrosse, serious footgear. Scentlock, get close, go undetected. The Walls Industries family of brands. Work hard, play hard, live outdoors. Federal Ammunition for the shot of a lifetime. Nikon, binoculars, scopes, and rangefinders for a better look at your world. Buckmasters Family by Jennings, makers of the Buckmaster, America's most popular bow. Whitetail Institute of North America, deer nutrition is our only business. And Streamlight, great lights for the great outdoors. Welcome to Alberta, Canada. It's November. There's a light covering of snow on the ground. The temperature is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the bucks are starting to rut. Jackie does his homework before heading to the woods. Wayne Jarvis of Scentlock joins Jackie for his first Alberta whitetail hunt.
We've come in a couple of days before the season. We've picked a high point that we can look all over the river bottom right here. We can see the cottonwoods where the deer bed, and they're coming out to the alfalfa, and they got peas this year. And this is a tip that I'd like to share with you, is get a good spotting scope, good binoculars, and if you can find a high point that you can see which way the deer are coming out in the afternoons and which way they're going back in the mornings, it'll help you select your tree stand location. And remember one thing, a lot of times the deer take certain trails coming out in the afternoon, and they'll take opposite trails going back in the bedding area in the morning, so you got to pay close attention to that and make sure you get the wind right. So we're going to continue to look right here, and then that way we'll know which stand to hunt in the morning.
Just after daybreak the next morning, several does casually work their way back from the fields. A tremendous buck suddenly appears at the edge of the brush. He chases a few does, then disappears into the thick cover. Jackie turns and spots another deer. A buck with exceptionally long brow tines heads the same direction. And passing right next to the stand is a heavy beamed 10-point. Everything seemed to happen all at once. Each buck was special in its own unique way, with the first huge 8-point being the most impressive. The morning movement is over as quickly as it had begun. It's an exciting morning for Wayne, too, as several does pass his stand, with a young 8-point close behind. And in the distance, he can see a good buck chasing some does. After the deer pass, Wayne sprays a cover scent. And a few minutes later, another buck approaches from the right. The young 10-point pass directly downwind of Wayne's stand and curiously comes to investigate. The combination of Wayne's scent lock suit and the cover scent have him baffled as he comes right up under the stand. Unalarmed, he calmly walks away. Later that morning, Wayne spots a couple of bucks together. They bristle up as a coyote approaches. All ends peacefully. Early in the afternoon, Wayne goes to another stand site he selected, overlooking a well-used trail between two areas of very thick cover. Within a matter of minutes of getting into his stand, Wayne spots a deer in the brush straight ahead. He can see it's a young doe as she slowly works her way toward him. A second doe appears. They suddenly pick up the pace, and Wayne looks behind them to see a buck coming down the trail. It's definitely a good buck. When the buck turns, Wayne is ready. There's no time wasted climbing down.
Been seeing some nice bucks the last couple of days, and they all been chasing does, and that's exactly what this one was doing. Two does came out of the brush, and we could see him in there, and he stepped out right behind him, right in the clearing, and got a good shot at him, put him down with one shot, and dropped right here in his tracks. Beautiful 10-point. First time in Alberta, and boy, what a successful hunt. Having a great time. Sunshine, not too cold. Doesn't get any better than this.
That afternoon, Jackie heads to his evening stand early. The stand is positioned across a pasture from the thick willow brush that the deer use so cleverly. It's not long before a good-looking 8-point appears on the edge of the brush. Several does pass by, but the buck looks back into the willows. Jackie scans the area. And eventually another nice buck comes out of the brush trailing the does. The two bucks are just about equal in body size and rack. But now something else has their attention. A huge buck steps into the open. He's focused on the other deer already in the pasture. Without hesitation, Jackie knows this is definitely a shooter. The buck appears to be relaxed, but thoroughly checks the area. A second shot isn't necessary. Jackie climbs down and heads across the pasture. He stops for a second look just to be sure.
What a great deer. Check this, folks. Isn't that a great deer? Now, when you talk about 8 points, this is a great 8 point. Look at the mass. Look at the brow tines. He has got it all for an 8 point. Man, oh man. Well, I tell you what, we saw this buck the first morning. Also saw him the first afternoon. And I've passed up some great deer. But I felt like if we just stayed after him and got the wind right on him, we might be able to catch up with him. It was just a matter, they were going to the food sources and coming back to the bedding areas. We just had to get the wind right. And the wind was wrong on us a couple of times. But we were fortunate this afternoon. Had a lot of deer come by us, and he was coming out right then. Got a little nervous on us right there. I don't know if some coyotes were running the bottom behind him, but man, I got shaken so bad before it shot. I had to regroup and took a deep breath, and I was fortunate to make a good shot. But isn't that a great buck? Another great Alberta whitetail. There's nothing like hunting up here. We've got the snow, cold weather, it's making a move, and they're just getting ready to start rutting. Man, oh man. That's something else. Well, let me get him tagged up.
Just how quick and agile is the Kodiak Bear? It ran away with ATV of the Year. The Kodiak Automatic 4x4 from Yamaha. Now the ATV that lets you switch from 2 to 4-wheel drive with the push of a button is ATV Magazine's ATV of the Year.
We believe in hunters. They make the outdoors a better place. We share their passion and support their causes. You might think we make equipment for hunters. We don't. We make their beer. When the hunt is through, this bud's for you.
You can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Here, boys, you need Buckmaster's new bow hunting game from Radical.
Wow, that's big.
Hey, it extends to a full 27 inches.
Looks for real.
Plays for real. It's from Radical. Search for hunting clues, set up your tree stands. Hey, and watch out for coyotes.
Hey, I got a buck in my sights.
It aims like the real thing. Sophisticated motion sensors will help you zero in on the deer.
Sophisticated. Dang, I missed. Yeah, it's real. Still takes skill.
Buckmaster's bow hunting and other hunting games from Radica. Get real, get Radica.
Big bucks, great hunts. Hi, I'm Bill Jordan, and I want to introduce you to the new and exciting Realtree Hardwoods Camo pattern. This pattern is so 3D, it makes you feel that you can reach right through it. Hardwoods was designed to be used year-round for all types of hunting. Whether you hunt from hardwoods in the east, cottonwoods in the Midwest, from the ground, up close at 20 yards, or out to 200 yards, this pattern will work for you. Ask for Realtree Hardwoods, the pattern that makes you feel that you can reach right through it. Available at your local sporting goods dealer.
The river bottoms of Montana, populated with an abundant supply of cottonwoods, offer the perfect setting for an early September bow hunt. Terry Rome of Wellington Outdoors arrives a day early to look the area over before the next morning's hunt. With the position of the woods in relation to the preferred food supply of sugar beets, corn, and alfalfa, the deer have definitely established a consistent travel pattern. After observing their movement, Terry feels pretty confident about his stand selection for the upcoming hunt. The next morning, Terry is in his stand before sunrise. He applies a scent eliminator, puts on his scent lock gear, and ranges his distances. It isn't long before the first deer appears. Terry can see that it's a good buck and gets ready.
There he is.
Oh man, opening morning of Montana's bow season. First deer we saw, what a great hunt. It rained last night and it got real windy over the night, and this deer was spooky. I mean, he come up out of the slough just wondering which way he should go, and luckily he came right by the scent bomb, and I had to grunt just a little bit to get him to stop to give me that quartering away shot. And that's a good tip. You don't want to grunt too loud, just grunt loud enough that the deer can hear it, or he thinks he hears something. He stops, he looks around, gives you the good shot. But then, lucky enough, made a good shot, and away he went, and this is what we got at the end of the trail. A beautiful 9-point Montana buck, still in velvet.
The rolling hills and woodlots of Kansas are home to some of the greatest whitetails to ever live in North America. And that's where Buckmaster's Russell Thornberry meets with noted bow hunter Dale Larson of Spring Creek Lodge for a late October bow hunt. Dale explains a little about the terrain and where they'll be hunting.
Normally like to do is what we're doing now is set up an overview for the individuals so they can see the area that we intend to hunt, and this will be the draw that you'll be hunting while you're here.
From the top of the ridge, Russ can see a lot of movement on the open grassy slopes as the deer work their way back and forth between woodlots. The weather turns cold and stormy over the next couple of days. But later in the week, when it breaks, Russ is set up in a cedar tree at the head of the draw. He spots a buck along the edge of the timber above him. Russ waits, but the buck senses something isn't quite right. He passes by a little out of range. A short while later, a doe comes from behind the stand. She looks back briefly and goes on. The day begins to warm up. And late in the morning, Russ hears footsteps from behind once again. He's ready when a buck passes right under the stand.
It looks good from here. I mean, that dude came right under me, jumped the fence, and I squawked at him, and he stopped, and I took a quarter and away shot. I can't do any better.
Russ goes to where he last saw the deer and follows the trail from there.
Oh, yeah. There's my deer. Look at this. What an exciting deal. And I mean, he came under our stand, jumped the fence just like 10 yards in front of us, getting ready to head across this grass prairie. Thankfully, a little grunt turned him around long enough for the shot, and here he is. It's a great state of Kansas, and I'm a happy camper.
Our next hunt is in Mexico, where Jackie joins Clay Young of Alamo Outfitting.
Well, they're moving good, but they don't have to move far to get what they need to eat. So this is low brush country, and it's fairly flat. We've got some rolling hills and really big, thick draws, but it's still really thick. And unless you unless you catch one going through an opening area or a sendero, then they're tough to see. I've picked out an area for you over a really big draw that's got a lot of deer movement in it. I've got a box blind up on a really high ridge where it kind of give you a little bit of advantage to see down at them.
From the box blind, Jackie can see quite a distance, especially against the hillside and in the roadway that runs across the valley floor. There is a lot of deer activity over the first couple of days. And eventually a tremendous buck shows up and steps into the roadway. Jackie uses his binoculars to confirm what he thinks he's seeing. The buck rubs some overhanging branches and makes a scrape, attracting the attention of another buck. Jackie guesses the distance to be between 300 and 400 yards, but uses his rangefinder to be sure. The big buck bristles when the other deer approach. He turns just as Jackie gets into position. Then vanishes into the brush as quickly as he had appeared. Late in the week, Jackie is heading out to the same area for an afternoon hunt when he spots something in the distance. A good buck appears on a ridge with several other deer across the valley. With the shadows already beginning to fall, Jackie and Clay immediately begin to close the distance. They ease out over the point where they last saw the deer. The buck suddenly breaks from cover.
The last 10 minutes of the hunt?
Oh, man. What a great shot.
Oh, man.
He gave me just a second, but I was fortunate to make a good shot on it.
That was a wonderful shot.
All right, well, I guess the hard work's getting ready to start, so I'll get him tagged up, and you go back and get some help. I'll just stay right here.
All right.
All right, buddy.
Sounds good.
It's late November in Saskatchewan, Canada. As the cool, crisp winter air moves in, it leaves a fresh blanket of snow over the forest floor, providing evidence of any deer movement through the area.
The reason most people come to Saskatchewan is in quest for the big northern deer. Our mature deer can range anywhere from 250 pounds and up, and horn size is pretty relative to what their body size is. These harsh conditions really weed out the little deer, so what's left is usually fairly big. So, with the large body sizes on these deer in Saskatchewan, some people find it a little hard judging, but with an ear tip to tip, usually of 18 inches, you can see why the body would dwarf the horns in some cases, but when a real true shooter comes, you'll know.
Hunters in camp this week include Bill Sawyer of Montgomery, Alabama, and Ross Richards of Marion, Michigan. As the sun rises and begins a new day, Carlton Parker of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, tries his luck with a bow. Early that morning, Carlton is entertained by a couple of bucks just out of bow range. Later, Carlton catches movement coming his way. The buck comes straight toward the stand.
Well, congratulations, Carlton. First archery whitetail, Canada?
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, it is excellent, excellent. I see it's a little different challenging from down south, isn't it?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
The clothing and climate conditions add to the excitement, and it's well worth it.
Other hunters in camp that week were Chris Lorson of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and Jack Powell of Cadillac, Michigan. Congratulations to them on a successful hunt. Saskatchewan resident Daryl Tomanek also had a good week. Not long after getting set up, he spots a nice buck at the edge of the timber. Congratulations to Daryl on this fine Saskatchewan whitetail.
Hello?
Listen carefully. Hank has been bucknapped.
Bucknapped?
Meet our demands or we stuff the buck.
Anything to get my buddy back.
Here's what we want. 2 cases each of Teak 69 solid and gel. 6 cases of Teak 69 scent bombs. And 142 cases of Teak 69. Teak 69!
Hank, is that you?
It's not me, Larry.
Oh, Hank,
I just wanted more Teak 69.
If you had a rump, I'd kick it.
If you'd like to make a call,
No, don't
please
try
hang
that
up.
on me. I can't.
Where is that report? I don't show your reservation. Are you still there?
We haven't settled our account from last quarter. Did you just find it?
At La Crosse, we go farther than anyone to build a better boot. We think you'll find comfort in that.
Listen here,
Especially if where you want to go is 1,000,000 miles away. La Crosse, serious foot gear.
Hunter, 500 yards. Better go this way. Coyote, 3 hours ago. No problem. No, I'll follow her.
Gotcha.
Get close. Go undetected with ScentLock.
My daughter Ann Tyler says being outdoors is more fun when she wears her Liberty Like That bib overalls and t-shirt in Realtree Extra. They match mine and they have more pockets than you can shake a stick at. Right, honey?
Right, Dad.
Liberty Like Dad's outerwear is even made for cold weather. These coveralls in Realtree Extra use warm hollow fill insulation. Man, this camouflage works good too. And Tyler, where are you?
Here I am, Dad.
Available where your better sporting goods are sold.
Welcome to Idaho, where Jackie joins Tim Craig of Boulder Creek Outfitters on an October whitetail hunt.
All right, looks like the weatherman's not going to treat us too good. Looks like we got a lot of rain, snow mixed, and a lot of fog, it looks like.
Nasty weather in here right now. So it's, it's a couple days supposed to be, and a little fog and heavy rain. So that will be good for the whitetails. They'll move good in that stuff. The elk's going to be a little tougher, but we'll get the job done.
The rain shows no sign of letting up as Jackie heads out for the day. After spotting a buck on the ridge, Jackie tries to move in a little closer and spooks a second buck in the process. A third buck is bedded to the left. And eventually all the bucks get up and move toward the timber. They're within range, but remain perfectly silhouetted in the skyline. Jackie cautiously follows. He spots one of the bucks moving through the timber. And two more quickly slip through an opening. They go back up the slope into the open flat. The rain continues to fall, heavy at times. After crawling for a couple of 100 yards, Jackie once again gets up on the big 8-point. And once again he's skylined. The other two bucks get nervous and begin to ease away. But finally, after all this time, the buck Jackie wants offers the opportunity for a shot. Jackie watches in disbelief as the buck calmly walks away, then shakes the water off and disappears into the timber.
Folks, what a miserable rainy morning. We've been seeing those three bucks, I bet you, for 2 hours. We stalked them, couldn't get a shot that was presentable. They were skylining on us, and we just couldn't get a shot. Got up on them close, almost had a few more shots down the woods, just couldn't get on them. And finally, they cut back in the pasture right there, and I thought I had it on him. He jumped up and then went on, and I was just waiting for him to follow him. The real insult's when he got over there and shook all the water off and ran off with the other three. So
later in the week, the weather broke and Jackie and Tim hunt another area of the ranch.
This is always a nice ridge. You got such a good view.
Right. It's always seems to be deer in that brush over that rip brush.
They lay right in those fields, you know, and they feed those fields in the mornings and late evenings, you know.
Wind's right, too.
Look at that. Look at that, Jackie. There's some deer right there. There's some does. Look at that. Look down below there. That's a nice deer. That's a good buck.
That's a good buck just getting up right
behind him.
Yeah,
that's a nice. See him there?
That's a shooter right there.
Let's go after him. He's going to go around that point. Jackie, let's head on down the fence row here and see if we can get a little closer.
Okay.
That's a nice deer.
That's a shooter right there.
He's got to be right around these draws right here somewhere. Jackie, there he is, right there. Seeing that brush right there? Yeah. Right below that green bush?
Use your rangefinder.
Look at that. That is a nice buck, Jackie. That's a good deer. Let's check out that yardage on that. That's a nice deer. 180 yards. 180 yards. He thinks he's hit good right there, Jackie. Just hold dead on right there. That's a nice deer.
Let me get this back up.
Okay. Take your time there, Jackie. That's a good buck.
All right, I'm on him.
Okay.
It's 180?
180 yards. Dead on. That's a good deer. He's down.
Well,
That's a good shooting, Jackie.
Man, I appreciate it. That rangefinder helps me. That looks longer.
It does. Well, yeah, it does.
But it's a straight line across.
It's deceiving. Yeah, you gotta. That's the thing about this rangefinder. They save us a lot of bad shots and shooting over top of them.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of folks look further and shoot over top.
Sure. You got a heck of a deer there, Jackie.
I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Let me catch my breath, then we'll go get him.
We'll go down across and get below him there. We can drag him up that hill.
All right.
That's great. I'll tell you, what a day.
Oh man, that's perfect.
Another perfect morning.
Let's check him out, Tim.
Look at that. That's a nice deer, Jackie.
Basic 8-pointer, isn't it?
Oh yeah, nice frame. Good genes. Look at that. Got a little trash there on him. He was trying to get some more points there to him.
Yes, he was.
He's a good looking.
It's late January, the last week of the Alabama deer season, as John LaCourte of Nikon sets up for his morning hunt. After ranging the area, it isn't long before a small buck appears. With a light rain in the early morning hours, the young buck freshens up his scrape. A short while later, another buck shows up. John takes a closer look. He can see there's something odd about the rack and decides to let him walk on. Later that morning, John catches movement through the small pine trees. This time, he decides it's a buck he wants to take.
Raining pretty hard this morning. Kind of wondered whether it was worth hunting or not, but had a smaller buck come by, let him go, and saw a shooter buck, but once I got the scope on him, could see part of his right horn was broken off. Just a few minutes later, this fella showed up, and was fortunate enough to make a good shot on him.
That same week of the Alabama deer season, Brad Penny of Streamlight Flashlights also had a chance to do a little hunting. The first morning of the hunt, as Brad looks the area over, he spots a buck in the distance. When the morning brightens, the deer activity picks up as a small buck makes his mark. It's not long before he gains the attention of another buck. Then Brad catches movement in the brush. It's a good buck. Even though only one side of his rack is good, Brad can tell this is definitely a mature buck. As he follows the doe, Brad gets ready.
Had a great hunt this morning. Saw several deer coming out of the woods out into the field. We got a few doe early, a nice 8-pointer that I couldn't shoot. And then a couple of young ones come out and started fighting. This one came out wanted to join in, but unfortunately I had him in my sights, so he didn't get to fight this morning.
Buckmaster's staff member Elliot Allen tries his luck with a muzzle loader. The first deer to appear is a doe. With her nervous actions, Elliot feels certain there's a buck nearby. As she walks away, a buck follows close behind. Elliot ranges the distance, but with open sights, the buck is a little too far for a comfortable shot. He lets the buck walk away. Suddenly, a second buck appears. Elliot gets ready.
There.
Fun hunt with muzzleloader this morning. Early we had some does come out, or a doe come out, and just kept on looking back in the woods, and I just knew there had to be a buck out there. And finally he stepped out and I pulled up the rangefinder, and it's about 150 yards and just a little bit too far for me to shoot with an open sight muzzleloader, so I just had to watch him walk over the hill. And then I looked around to my left, and here this buck was at 50 yards, and it's just too good of an opportunity to pass up. And but it sure has been a fun morning with that muzzleloader.
For investments important as this, you've got Federal.
Buckmaster, a member of the North American Archery Group.
I'm Ray Scott, and if you're like me, you'd love to have monster bucks on your property. Grab a pencil and paper. With Imperial Whitetail Clover, you can. Imperial attracts deer and is the only food plot planting that provides 30 to 35% protein year-round for phenomenal rack development. Sound good? Then call 1-800-688-3030 for this free 50-minute video explaining the entire Imperial program. Call today and start growing bigger bucks tomorrow.
It's late October as Jackie joins George and Josh Warner on the managed property of Hill Country Whitetails in Pennsylvania.
All right, well, now what are the deer doing? Because it's always usually around close to the rut, right?
Oh, yeah, well, they're ready to kick into the rut right now. But this warm weather's just, stopping it.
Right. So
we need to change the weather. We need a front to come through, which, hopefully this week, I think there's one going to be doing that, and that should help us a lot.
That next morning, Jackie is in his stand early, overlooking a hillside that had recently been logged. It's well after daybreak before the first deer shows up. He comes toward the stand. He stops to make a scrape, then disappears into the thick cover. It turns out to be a slow morning as a young gobbler casually strolls down the trail. By mid-morning, Jackie is on his way back to camp. He's surprised when a buck steps out of the sorghum right into his path. The buck stands for a few seconds, then bounds away. The weather turns cold and breezy later in the week as Jackie changes to a couple of new stand locations. He sprays some raccoon cover scent on the leaves around his stand. A nice-looking 8-point steps out of the brush. And an even bigger buck suddenly appears to challenge him. Jackie slowly moves into position. But the bigger buck stays in the thick brush and eventually beds down. Jackie patiently waits, constantly watching in every direction. A small buck approaches the big buck in his bed. After a little friendly sparring, the bigger buck gets up. He briefly rubs a tree to show a little authority, then steps into an opening. Jackie takes full advantage of the opportunity and is pleased with the shot.
We've worked real hard. I tell you, the weather's been tough. Finally cooled off for us, but it was hot there at the first of the hunt, and had an opportunity on one, just couldn't get a shot at him. And I was fortunate to get this one right here at the end. But We've had a fun week up here with Hill Country Whitetail. It's a lot of fun, got some great deer, and this is just the end result.
It's mid-December as Jackie joins Marty Moore on a South Texas whitetail hunt.
We're just now really starting to run the does hard and making a lot of scrape lines, seeing a lot of big deer fighting.
Really?
So rattling ought to be excellent. We'll do some of that along the, we have 3 miles of Nueces River frontage, and we'll go down that river bottom and see what we can do down there also.
First location Jackie hunts is a green field planted under a power line. Before going to his blind, he hangs a scent bomb at the edge of the brush. It doesn't take long for the first buck to appear from downwind. Soon others show. And the later it gets in the afternoon, the more activity there is. Jackie takes a close look as another good buck approaches the fence and enters the field.
Uh-oh. They're squaring off. We could have a good fight here, folks. Man, there they go. Look at them go. Man, they are tearing each other up. They're digging the dirt up. That's a fight right there. That was a fight.
Early the next morning, Jackie's in position when there's a flurry of rut activity near his stand. And just as the sun begins to rise, another buck steps onto the field.
Yeah, that's a good buck right there. That's a shooter. Oh, man. He just chased a doe in right there. There he is, right there. Man, that's a good buck right there. Man, oh man. Oh man.
After waiting a few minutes, Jackie leaves his stand.
I looked down the power line and I saw this buck coming about 350 to 400 yards. He was just walking the edge right there and he cut back in the brush. And then finally he came out about 200 yards and I was trying to get a shot at him, and then a doe cut across the power line, and boy, he took off right behind her. And I mean, the rut is just really kicking in now. And fortunate enough, he came back out a couple of minutes later and gave me a broadside shot.
That same week, 11-year-old Ben King from North Garden, Virginia, got to hunt with his dad, Mark, on the ranch. The morning started with a little rutting activity by a young buck. But as more does come to the field, a good buck suddenly shows up.
He's gonna come over.
He's coming. He comes.
Oh, he jumped the fence.
Oh, there he goes. Is he an 8 or a 9?
I think he's a 9.
I don't know what it looks like.
No, he's behind that bush again. Oh, there he is. He came out. Wait till he gets clear of those. Wait till he gets clear of those. That doe. That out of the lake there. Can you see him?
I see him.
Got him in the scope?
Got him.
Marty offers congratulations on Ben's first Texas whitetail.
Was that exciting, buddy?
That was almost too fun.
That was a great morning, wasn't it?
Congratulations, Mr. Marty.
Thanks, Marty.
Our next trip is a mid-January hunt in Alabama, just as the rut is about to kick in. This is the time of year when Buckmasters host a special hunt for disabled hunters and seriously ill youngsters. These hunters come from all across the nation, each showing incredible courage and the desire and determination to get out and do what they enjoy most.
I'll tell you what, we just hope y'all have a great time. And we look forward to doing this. I told everybody, if I only could do one hunt a year, this would be it. And just to see the new faces and to make new friends, that's what this hunt's all about. But hopefully each one of you will walk away here, hopefully with a deer, but also with a lot of memories.
Young Matthew Berkable of Frydens, Pennsylvania was excited as he made his way to a stand that first afternoon with his father. A few does show up early. Matthew and his dad watch patiently from the blind until they spot a deer in the woods beside them. They can see it's a buck. Matthew waits for the right opportunity. And when the buck stops in an opening, he's ready. With his first buck ever, it's an exciting time for both Matt and his dad. Eli Sokolowski had been hunting several times in his home state of Delaware, but had never had the opportunity to take a deer. Today he has high expectations as he takes a position overlooking a clover field. A nervous young doe is the first deer to come out of the woods. Eli uses his binoculars and soon spots several more deer as they make their way to the field. Included in the group is a very good buck. Eli is patient, however, and waits for the deer to work their way a little closer. When the buck moves into position, Eli gets ready. And later that evening, Eli is excited to share his experience with his best friend and hunting companion, his brother Sean. Roland Cox of New Mexico had only ever read about whitetail hunting, and now here he is experiencing a new adventure as he heads to a ground blind along a clover field. A stiff breeze picks up late in the afternoon, but a few deer still show up along the wood line. Roland suddenly spots a buck directly across from his blind. The buck is cautious, but comes onto the field and begins to feed. Late in the day, a couple of big gobblers show up, giving Roland his first look at a wild turkey. The deer never get close enough for a comfortable shot and eventually leave the field. Later in the week, Roland is set up at another location when he spots movement through the trees. He can see it's a good buck. He gets ready. The buck walks through an opening, then stops right in line with another deer. And when he does, Roland can see he has only one antler. The buck takes one last look back and walks away. Roland glances in the direction the buck had been looking to see another good buck. He wastes no time. Roland knew he had made a good shot.
Dan, this is an exciting moment for me. This is my first whitetail buck ever. We've been putting in lots of hours trying to get this, and it finally paid off.
The excitement of hunting the wilderness area of northern Saskatchewan, where anything can happen, is what keeps hunters coming back year after year to Keeley Lake Lodge. Mike Calabrese of Blenheim, New Jersey, eagerly looks forward to setting up on a late November whitetail. Each day and throughout the entire week, Mike sees deer activity around his stand. He spots this nice buck that paws at the ice along a small creek to get a drink. There are other animals on the move as well, including this red fox that suddenly reappears with a rabbit in his mouth. It was a good week, but Mike didn't see what he was looking for until the last morning of his hunt, when a great buck follows a doe into an opening. The reaction is automatic. Mike is extremely pleased. When the closer he gets, the bigger the buck looks.
And I'm one happy hunter. It's a beautiful 5x5 and great time up here in northern Saskatchewan.
It's the first week of December as we travel south of the border to hunt whitetails in Mexico.
Hi everybody, I'm Russ Thornberry. I'm in Mexico with my buddy Ed Gannon. We're both here, first time ever to hunt whitetails in Mexico with 2J Outfitters, with old friends and new. First of all, Abram Garcia, my new friend. Thank you for having us down. And James Sr. Ferguson and James Jr. Ferguson, it's been a long time and I appreciate being here. Now I know for a fact that you got lots of big deer on this ranch and we're breathing heavy over this. You got two types of hunts. Can you explain that?
Yes, Russ. Basically, we don't harvest anything unless they're 5.5 years and older. Okay. Only mature animals. We have two types of hunts. Our regular trophy hunt that will score up to 140, and then anything from 140 up comes under the premium trophy hunts that could be some real nice trophy animals.
So this is not about numbers of points on the rack, it's about score at maturity.
That's correct.
And 140 is
break
and
line.
under, and then 140 above.
That's
okay.
correct.
The first morning of the hunt, the fog is close to the ground. But even with the limited visibility, Ed spots a good buck in the brush. He automatically reaches for his rifle. But with a closer look, he realizes this buck is pretty impressive and a step above the level he is hunting. He watches as the buck disappears in the brush. It's an active morning with deer on the move in nearly every direction. And just when he thinks the morning activity is about to wind down, Ed spots a tremendous buck slipping away through the cactus and mesquite. He instantly knows this buck far exceeds the management level he's shooting for. He watches it walk away. Late in the day, an impressive buck steps into the roadway. Ed takes a close look and decides this one fits his category. Jimmy and Ed have no trouble finding the buck.
Hey, what a rack on this deer. And a big chocolate horn.
Heavy, he's got good mass.
Yes, sir. There's Roman nose on him.
In this part of the world, that's kind of characteristic of a 6.5, 7.5-year-old buck.
Yeah, this is what they look like when they grow up.
Yes, sir.
He's a huge deer.
Oh, he's beautiful.
All right.
Congratulations on your first Mexico whitetail.
Man, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
That was awesome.
It's an enjoyable evening in camp that night as the day's events are relayed. The next morning, Abram and Russ are set up glassing another part of the ranch. Just after daybreak, they spot a buck crossing a roadway. But before they can get a good look at him, he chases a doe into the brush. A short time later, a doe reappears. And Abram spots the buck behind her. But the buck crosses the roadway once again and disappears into the brush. When he comes back out, Russ is ready.
He was right about here.
Oh, look at there he is.
There we go.
How about that, huh?
Oh, he's a good buck.
Woohoo!
Just make sure he looks like he's done.
I think so. Man, look at this. Well, how's my Spanish? Is this a 9 puntas?
9 puntas.
9 points. Okay. Golly, what a deal. Let me look at him.
Yes.
You know, this cold weather moved in. They started chasing does, and this guy, this morning, after chasing those does around that last time when he came out broadside and had his head up and be just looking around the country, man, what a sight. That's going to live in my memory.
Our next trip is to northwestern Saskatchewan the 3rd week of November for a chance at one of those huge Canadian whitetails. Success in these elements often depends on having the right equipment, dressing properly, and the willingness to get there early and being prepared to stay late. It's a frosty start to the day as Jackie spots a deer just after daybreak. The buck stops for a moment. Then moves on. Later that morning, a couple of does pass the stand and a different buck suddenly shows up. He's definitely a mature buck and carries a rack of heavy, dark antlers. He follows the does back into the woods in the direction he came from. It's an active morning as the buck that passed by at daybreak shows up again. He looks directly at the stand and walks away. Late in the day, Jackie spots movement in the brush. Several does are headed right toward the stand. Jackie watches and carefully scans the area. There's a buck. Jackie turns to get into position as the buck comes his way. But when he raises his rifle, the does spook and run off, getting the buck's attention.
That's a great deer. That is a great buck. Man, I was just looking over there on the edge, and there he was. And he started walking right to me. And I think the does might have saw me move right there, and he just stopped. He was getting ready to go. And he didn't go anywhere.
Man, what a deer. Folks, isn't this a great buck right here? Look at the beam length on this whitetail. Look how it comes all the way out. He's even busted off a point right there. He even had a kicker. Busted off one of his brow tines. But man, we have had one heck of a day. We had a nice 11 point come in early on us. Me being left-handed, I don't care where I sit across the country. It seems like every time a big buck comes by, he's always on the opposite side of me. And I couldn't get turned around this morning to get a shot at him. And he went on by and he came back about 2 or 3 times. And I took my safety off a couple of times, but I just never could get the shot. He was either walking or got behind something. And then we saw a real big bodied 8 point. He came in. A lot of mass on him, not long time length, but I mean a body and some mass on him. And he must have caught me move a little bit. And he got out of there. He didn't run, but he just knew something was up. And we waited later this afternoon, and all of a sudden I looked over on the edge, and this old rascal right here stepped out. We had a couple of does there right under us, and he was coming right to him. And I was trying to get around where I could get a shot, and the does must have spotted me move because I think they were getting out of there. He put the brakes on, and I knew it was either now or never. So I made the shot and he didn't go very far, but this is what you come to Saskatchewan for. Is the body size. This deer right here weigh 250 to 300 pounds and get a chance to see a big old bruiser like this. In hunting, safety is number one. When it comes to flashlights and safety, Streamlight is number one. Take the Stylus Pen Light for an example. Going to and from your stand, other hunters can see the green beam for over a mile. It's waterproof, has a lifetime LED bulb, and is virtually indestructible. Check out the Wow. This hands-free light keeps you safe climbing in and out of your tree stand. Plus, every hunter needs the Poly Stinger. Keep this rechargeable light mounted in your truck, and it's always ready to go. If you're a serious hunter with safety in mind, Streamlight has you covered. Streamlight, great lights for the great outdoors.
Buckmasters is dedicated to the future of our hunting heritage and invites you to become part of the nation's #1 deer hunting association, as over 350,000 hunters nationwide have done. Join for 3 years and we'll send you a membership package worth over $150 for just $74.95. You'll receive 18 issues of the Buckmasters Whitetail magazine, $1,000 worth of gun and bow insurance, a camo hat, a Wellington scent, a Woods Wise grunt call, 2-hour video, as well as a 3-inch Camillus lock blade knife. 1- and 5-year memberships also available. Call now and pick out your membership today.
Hi, this is Jackie Bushman. Welcome to the Buckmaster video series, Big Game 4. Join the Buckmasters crew on this exciting big game adventure across North America, featuring incredible and dramatic hunts with bow, muzzleloader, and rifle. You will travel into virtually unhunted native Inuit land for caribou in northern Quebec. You will hunt elk in the scenic mountains of Idaho, antelope on the high plateaus of New Mexico, and black bear in the wilderness regions of Saskatchewan. You'll hunt the prairie of Kansas for mule deer as a 30-inch buck is taken with a muzzleloader. You'll feel the drama on a bow hunt for elk in New Mexico as a 388-inch Pope and Young bull is taken at 10 yards. Plus, live the experience of a drop camp in the wilderness of Alaska as a 60-inch bull moose is taken. You'll feel the thrill, appreciate the effort, and enjoy the moment with each of 10 on-camera shots in the Buckmaster video series, Big Game 4.
Our next trip is to the Montgomery Properties Ranch in Texas. Owner Don Montgomery has put a lot of special effort into a quality management program for the deer on his ranches. Hunter Gene Day has already had an exciting trip, seeing some great bucks over the last couple of days. When on the hillside across from his stand, a tremendous buck appears. But instead of going to the field, the buck goes directly away, with no chance of an open shot. Eventually, several other bucks do come to the field, including this very impressive 8-point. But Gene resists the temptation. Then, right in front of the stand, the big buck he had seen earlier suddenly appears. This time, there's no hesitation. Even on the walk-up, the buck doesn't lose anything in size. Gene is all smiles with his tremendous 173-inch trophy whitetail. It's an interesting start to the day for hunter David Green, as he has deer activity around his stand all morning. And even once the day begins to brighten, bucks in search of does pass all around him. A flock of gobblers comes to the field and provides some interesting entertainment. Once the sunlight hits the field, the deer begin to move into the edge of the woods. David takes a cue from this young 10-point to look across the field and sees an exceptionally heavy-beamed mature 8-point with a doe. He's impressed with the buck and wastes no time getting into position for a shot. David is extremely pleased with his massive buck that actually turned out to be a 10-point. But he's even more impressed later in the week when he takes a 15-point, 180-inch dream buck. Don's entire family is involved in hunting, and he takes particular pleasure in spending time with each of his sons and daughter. The reward is immeasurable, like this moment when his son Mitchell takes an 11-point with a 25-inch spread. Don's son Ty helps out on the ranch when it's time to take a few management bucks. He looks over a lot of deer, but waits for a mature buck that doesn't show the qualities Don is wanting to promote. Eventually, he spots the kind of buck he's looking for. The big 8-point has a cedar branch stuck in his antlers. Ty is patient and waits for the buck to present the right angle. It was nearly 200 yards, but Ty knew he had made a good shot. Ty is truly impressed with the massive 8-point, cedar branch and all. Don has the extreme pleasure of hunting with his daughter, Erin. Now listen as he walks her through the hunt.
Okay, whenever you're ready, just right behind the front shoulder. Squeeze it and relax. Yeah, right on his front shoulder there. Right behind it.
Meanwhile, a fight breaks out on the far end of the field.
Oh, that's it. Too much. This way, man. Are you solid there? Huh? Yeah. Just hold right up on the middle of his shoulder if you are.
He's really far, though.
It's not that far. But you gotta be solid. Are you solid? That's about what the target was. Same distance.
Can I do it?
Yeah, if you're ready. Squeeze. Folks, we just had a first here. My 17-year-old daughter that drives her own vehicle alone just shot the wrong deer.
Shot it good, Joe.
Yeah, I think she made a hell of a shot on it, but it was the wrong deer. And we got it all on tape. Erin?
What?
Would you have to call for any words here? Erin?
What?
Look at me. Would you call for any words? Erin?
What?
What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm waiting for some more to come out.
Let me have your bullets. Erin?
What?
Why did you shoot the wrong deer?
No.
Erin?
I was focused.
Erin, there's a huge Erin,
What?
there's a huge 8-point standing next to this dink. Why do you shoot your dink? Huh?
I don't know.
Look at me. Aaron, man, did you shoot the deep? You had a huge 8-point. Huh?
I don't know.
Must get it from your mother.
It's mid-January in Alabama, with the bucks beginning to show interest in the does. Jackie tries a couple of his favorite stands located in good rutting areas. He's using a shotgun with slugs as he sits over an active scrape in a thick and brushy woodlot. A buck appears out of nowhere. He heads right for the scrape. Jackie waits. But the buck senses something isn't right and turns back. At daybreak the next morning, Jackie is comfortably settled in his stand on a hardwood ridge. He sprays a little cover scent on a tree next to him to counter any early morning wind shift. It's not long before there's movement straight ahead. A buck eases through the pines. Jackie watches as he calmly passes on by. A few minutes later, there's the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the leaves behind the stand. A nice buck is coming up the bottom of the draw. Jackie manages to find an opening through the limbs. The shot looks good, and he prepares to get down.
All right, I'll go back and get the four-wheeler, get him loaded up, and see if we can cook some venison tonight.
During the middle of the week, Jackie checks out an imperial whitetail clover field that has recently attracted a lot of deer activity. A stand set up on the west side offers a good view to nearly every part of the field and overlooks a scrape along the edge where a buck has marked his territory, offering the promise of an interesting hunt. With a good wind, Jackie returns to the clover field a couple of days later, this time with his rifle. Early in the afternoon, a single deer comes out of the woods. The button buck feeds on the field for nearly a half hour before returning to the thick cover. Just as the shadows fall completely across the field, Jackie spots another deer. It's a tremendous buck. starts across the clover field. Jackie lets him get some distance from the woods. The shot looked good.
There he is right there. Let's ease up.
Folks, isn't this a great buck? Check this out. 9 point. Here in the last week of the season here in Alabama. Actually, it got really warm today. It's about 71 degrees. And on our Imperial Clover field, we were waiting for, needed the east wind or southeast wind. We got it this afternoon. We've been sitting on another field and seeing a lot of buck sign, a lot of scrapes. Been seeing some does come out. We saw a small 8 point the other night that came out and cut across the field. But we just felt there was a good buck. The sign, the tracks, how high he was rubbing the trees, and the scrapes were just tremendous. That's a good deer. And I'm telling you why this is a good deer, because we had a drought situation this year, you know, and no acorn crop. And I tell you, this is a great deer under the conditions. But 9 point here in Alabama, that's a great buck. Man, he's an old buck too. All right. Go back and get the four-wheeler. Man, that's a good deer.